Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books, where we're flying through the Caitanya-caritämrta together. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he had a lot to say about the Sri Caitanya-caritämrta. I mean, it was his life and soul. One time he was giving a lecture in Munjer, near the Ganga, and an earth tremor caused a mild flooding of the Ganga, and then it receded the water, just for a few minutes, I think. And then Srila Saraswati Thakur said, in due course, Mahapralaya, devastating floods, will inundate the entire universe. If you attempt to survive by swimming in that deluge, then do not neglect to take hold of Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Sri Caitanya-caritämrta. Or if you cannot hold all three, then release Bhagavad Gita. What? If necessary, you may also relinquish Srimad Bhagavatam. What? But under no circumstances release your hold on Sri Caitanya-caritämrta. For if this one book remains, then the flood can do no actual damage, because after it has subsided, the message of Shastra can be revived from Sri Caitanya-caritämrta alone, it being the essence of all Shastra. Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhaktivinoda, Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhaktivinoda, Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Okay. We're well into the 10th chapter of the Ädi-lilä of Caitanya-caritämrta, and we've reached text 137. We're hearing about the trunk, the branches, the whole tree of devotional service. The Chaitanya tree. Text 137. Madhavi Devi, the 17th of the prominent devotees, was the younger sister of Sikhi Mahiti. In other words, Sikhi Mahiti's sister was one of the prominent branches. She is considered to have formerly been a maidservant of Srimati Radharani. Now remember, we're in Jagannath Puri now. We heard a long list of devotees, of his devotees in Navadvip, he grew up with, and now they're coming to see him regularly in Jagannath Puri, and there's a whole devotees who stayed there, some of them, and some of them are from there. So these are the list of those devotees in Jagannath Puri. Again, Madhavi Devi, the 17th of the prominent devotees, was the younger sister of Sikhi Mahiti. She is considered to have formerly been a maidservant of Srimati Radharani. Purport. In the Ädi-lilä of Caitanya-caritämrta, chapter 2, verses 104 through 106, excuse me, there is a description of Madhavi Devi. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu considered her one of the maidservants of Srimati Radharani. Within this world, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had 3.5 very confidential devotees. The 3 were Sarup Gosai, Sri Ramananda Roy, and Sikhi Mahiti. And Sikhi Mahiti's sister, Madhavi Devi, being a woman, was considered the half. Thus it is known that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had 3.5 confidential devotees. Text 138. Brahmachari Kasheshwar was a disciple of Ishwara Puri, and Sri Govinda was another of his dear disciples. Purport. Govinda was a personal servant of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In the Gauragano Deshatipika 137, it is stated that the servants formerly named Bringara and Bangura in Vrindavan became Kashishwar and Govinda in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes. Govinda always engaged in the service of the Lord, even at great risk. Text 190 through 139. A list of the prominent devotees at Nilachala, Jagannath Puri. Kashishwar was the 18th and Govinda the 19th. They both came to see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu at Jagannath Puri, being thus ordered by Ishwara Puri at the time of his passing away. Text 140. Both Kashishwar and Govinda were godbrothers of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and thus the Lord duly honored them as soon as they arrived. But because Ishwara Puri had ordered them to give Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personal service, the Lord accepted their service. So the order of the spiritual master is the life and soul of the disciple. That is Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary on Bhagavad Gita 241, Vyavasyatmika here, and therefore is passed on to us from our dear Srila Prabhupada. And this is the example. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would not take service from his godbrother, of his spiritual, the godbrothers of his spiritual master. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted it because it was the order of his spiritual master. The order of the spiritual master is the active principle of devotional service. I'll read it again. Both Kashishwar and Govinda were godbrothers of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and thus the Lord duly honored them as soon as they arrived. But because Ishwara Puri had ordered them to give Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personal service, the Lord accepted their service. Text 141. Govinda cared for the body of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, whereas Kashishwar went in front of the Lord when he went to see Jagannath in the temple. 142. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to the temple of Jagannath, Kashishwar, being very strong, cleared the crowds aside with his hands so that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu could pass untouched. Text 143. Ramai and Nandai, the 20th and 21st among the important devotees in Jagannath Puri, always assisted Govinda 24 hours a day in rendering service to the Lord. Text 144. Every day, Ramai filled 22 big water pots, whereas Nandai personally assisted Govinda. Purport. In the Gauraganodash Dipika 139, it is stated that two servants who formerly supplied milk and water to Lord Krishna became Ramai and Nandai in the pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So you get the pictures clearer and clearer. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna and Radharani together. So all his eternal associates, the pastimes are the same. They just look completely different, but they're the same persons doing them. Text 145. The 22nd devotee, Krishnadas, was born of a pure and respectable Brahmana family. While touring southern India, Lord Chaitanya took Krishnadas with him. Purport. Krishnadas is described in the Ädi-lilä, chapters 7 and 9. He went with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to carry his water pot. In the Malabar state, members of the Bhattahari cult tried to captivate Krishnadas by supplying him a woman to seduce him. But although Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saved him from being harmed, when he returned to Jagannath Puri, he ordered that Krishnadas remain separate from him, for the Lord was never favorably disposed toward an associate who was attracted by a woman. Thus Krishnadas lost the personal association of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Text 146. As a bona fide devotee, Balabhadra Bhattacharya, the 23rd principal associate, acted as the brahmachari of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu when he toured Mathura. Purport. Balabhadra Bhattacharya acted as a brahmachari or personal assistant of a sannyasi. A sannyasi is not supposed to cook. Generally, a sannyasi takes prasadam at the house of a grihastha, and the brahmachari helps in this connection. Balabhadra Bhattacharya acted as a brahmachari for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu when the Lord toured Mathura and Vrindavan. Text 147. Bada Haridas and Chota Haridas, the 24th and 25th devotees in Nilachala, were good singers who always accompanied Lord Chaitanya. Purport. Chota Haridas was later banished from the company of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as stated in the Ädi-lilä, chapter 2. So here are the details of all these people and what they did later on in the book. Text 148. Among the devotees who lived with Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu at Jagannath Puri, Ramabhadra Acharya was the 26th, Singeshwar the 27th, Tapanacharya the 28th, Raghunath the 29th, and Nilambar the 30th. 149. Singhabhata was the 31st, Kamabhata the 32nd, Shivananda the 33rd, and Kamalananda the 34th. They all formerly served Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Bengal, but later these servants left Bengal to live with the Lord in Jagannath Puri. Text 150. Achyutananda, the 35th devotee, was the son of Advaita Acharya. He also lived with Lord Chaitanya, taking shelter of his lotus feet at Jagannath Puri. Purport. There is a statement about Achyutananda in chapter 12, verse 13 of the Ädi-lilä. Text 151. Nirloma, Gangadas, and Vishnudas were the 36th and 37th among the devotees who lived in Jagannath Puri as servants of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Texts 152 and 154 through 154. The prominent devotees at Varanasi were the physician Chandrasekhar, Tapan Mishra, and Raghunath Bhattacharya, Tapan Mishra's son. When Lord Chaitanya came to Varanasi after seeing Vrindavan, for 2 months he lived at the residence of Chandrasekhar Vaidya and accepted prasadam at the house of Tapan Mishra. Purport. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was in Bengal, Tapan Mishra approached him to discuss spiritual advancement. Thus he was favored by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and received Harinam initiation. After that, by the order of the Lord, Tapan Mishra resided in Varanasi, and when Lord Chaitanya visited Varanasi, he would accept prasadam at the home of Tapan Mishra. Text 155. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stayed at the house of Tapan Mishra, Raghunath Bhatta, who was then a boy, washed his dishes and massaged his legs. Text 156. When Raghunath grew to be a young man, he visited Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu at Jagannath Puri and stayed there for 8 months. Sometimes he offered prasadam to the Lord. text 157. Later, by the order of Lord Chaitanya, Raghunath went to Vrindavan and remained there under the shelter of Srila Rupa Goswami. Text 158. While he stayed with Srila Rupa Goswami, his engagement was to recite Srimad Bhagavatam for him to hear. As a result of this Bhagavatam recitation, he attained perfectional love of Krishna, by which he remained always maddened. That's what happens when you read these books all the time. Purport. Raghunath Bhattacharya, or Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, one of the 6 Goswamis, was the son of Tapan Mishra. Born in approximately 1425 Shakabda, AD 1503, he was expert in reciting Srimad Bhagavatam, and in Ädi-lilä, chapter 13, it is said that he was also expert in cooking. Whatever he cooked would be nectarian. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was greatly pleased to accept the food that he cooked, and Raghunath Bhatta used to take the remnants of food left by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Raghunath Bhattacharya lived for 8 months in Jagannath Puri, after which Lord Chaitanya ordered him to go to Vrindavan to join Sri Rupa Goswami. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked Raghunath Bhatta not to marry, but to remain a brahmachari, and he also ordered him to read Srimad Bhagavatam constantly. Thus he went to Vrindavan, where he engaged in reciting Srimad Bhagavatam to Srila Rupa Goswami. He was so expert in reciting Srimad Bhagavatam that he would recite each and every verse in 3 melodious tunes. While Raghunath Bhatta Goswami was living with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Lord blessed him by offering him betel nuts, offered to the Jagannath deity, and a garland of tulsi, said to be as long as 14 cubits. Under Raghunath Bhatta Goswami's order, one of his disciples constructed the Govinda temple. Raghunath Bhatta supplied all the ornaments of the Govinda deity. He never talked of nonsense or worldly matters, but was always engaged in hearing about Krishna 24 hours a day. He never cared to hear blasphemy of a Vaishnava. Even when there were points to be criticized, he used to say that since all Vaishnavas were engaged in the service of the Lord, he did not mind their faults. Later, Raghunath Bhatta Goswami lived by Radha Kund in a small cottage. In the Gaura Ganodesha Deepika 185, it is said that Raghunath Bhatta Goswami was formerly the gopi named Raga Manjari. Text 159. I list in this way only a portion of the innumerable devotees of Lord Chaitanya. To describe them all fully is not possible. Text 160. From each branch of the tree have grown hundreds and thousands of sub-branches of disciples and grand disciples. Purport. It was the desire of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that his cult be spread all over the world. Therefore, there's a great necessity for many, many disciples of the branch of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's disciplic succession. His cult should be spread not only in a few villages or in Bengal or in India, but all over the world. It is very regrettable that complacent, so-called devotees criticize the members of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness for accepting sannyas and spreading the cult of Lord Chaitanya all over the world. It is not our business to criticize anyone, but because they try to find fault with this movement, the real truth must be stated. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted devotees all over the world, and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur confirmed this. It is in pursuit of their will that the ISKCON movement is spreading all over the world. Genuine devotees of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu must take pride in the spread of the Krishna consciousness movement instead of viciously criticizing its propaganda work. Text 161. Every branch and sub-branch of the tree is full of innumerable fruits and flowers. They inundate the world with the waters of love of Krishna. 162. Each and every branch of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's devotees has unlimited spiritual power and glory. Even if one had thousands of mouths, it would be impossible to describe the limits of their activities. Text 163. I have briefly described the devotees of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in different places. Even Lord Shesha, who has thousands of mouths, could not list them all. Shri Rupa Raghunatha Padiyara Aj, Caitanya-caritämrta Kahe Krishna Das. Praying at the lotus feet of Shri Rupa and Shri Raghunath, always desiring their mercy, I, Krishna Das, narrate Sri Caitanya-caritämrta following in their footsteps. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports to Sri Caitanya-caritämrta, Ädi-lilä, 10th chapter, in the matter of the main trunk of the Chaitanya tree, its branches and its sub-branches. All glories to the tree of devotional service. All glories to the International Society for Christian Consciousness, one of the branches of Lord Chaitanya's tree. All glories to all the eternal associates of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari O. This is where we get real enthusiasm from hearing about Lord Chaitanya and his eternal associates and their loving exchanges and their individual personalities and characteristics and specialties in their devotional services. You notice some are very just simply carrying a torch or pushing away the crowd so he can walk through, some bringing water. There is no such thing as a small service in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement. The goal of our lives is to follow in the footsteps of the eternal associates of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Nityananda Advaitacharya and Radha Krishna, Sri Sri Radha Krishna, and their eternal associates. That's the goal of life for everyone. Except for those who want to take shelter of Vaikuntha. Because there are spirit souls who want to be in love with the Lord in opulence. Chapter 11. The expansions of Lord Nityananda. As the branches and sub-branches of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu were described in the 10th chapter, in this 11th chapter, the branches and sub-branches of Sri Nityananda Prabhu are similarly listed. And here we can remember the statements that came about during the pastime of Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, getting the order from Lord Nityananda to go to Vrindavan and have all his desires fulfilled. And in those purports, Prabhupada stated, and in the verses also, that if one worships Lord Chaitanya without worshipping equally Lord Nityananda, or worships Lord Nityananda without equally worshipping Lord Chaitanya, then he's considered to be an atheist. And if he worships Lord Chaitanya without worshipping Radha and Krishna, or worships Lord Chaitanya without worshipping Lord Chaitanya, that person is also considered to be an atheist. Text 1. Nityananda Padam Boja, Nityananda Padam Boja, Bringan Prema Madhud Madan, Natva Kilan Teshu Mukhya, Likantyate Likyante Katichinmaya. After offering my obeisances unto all the devotees of Sri Nityananda Prabhu, who were like bumblebees collecting honey from his lotus feet, I shall try to describe those who are the most prominent. Jaya Jaya Mahaprabhu Sri Krishna Chaitanya Tanhara Charanrisha Ye Saidanya. All glories to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Anyone who has taken shelter at his lotus feet is glorious. Text 3. Jaya Jaya Sri Advaita Jaya Nityananda Jaya Jaya Mahaprabhuda Sarva Bhakta Vrinda. All glories to Sri Advaita Prabhu, Nityananda Prabhu, and all the devotees of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Text 4. Sri Nityananda Prabhu is the topmost branch of the indestructible tree of eternal love of Godhead. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, I offer my respectful obeisances to all the sub-branches of that topmost branch. I want to read that again. I didn't read it perfectly. Sri Nityananda Prabhu is the topmost branch of the indestructible tree of eternal love of Godhead, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I offer my respectful obeisances to all the sub-branches of that topmost branch. Text 5. Sri Nityananda Prabhu is an extremely heavy branch of the Sri Chaitanya tree. From that branch grow many branches and sub-branches. Text 6. Watered by the desire of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, these branches and sub-branches have grown unlimitedly and cover the entire world with fruits and flowers. Text 7. These branches and sub-branches of devotees are innumerable and unlimited. Who could count them? For my personal purification, I shall try to enumerate only the most prominent among them. Purport. One should not write books or essays on transcendental subject matter for material name, fame, or profit. Transcendental literature must be written under the direction of a superior authority, because it is not meant for material purposes. If one tries to write under superior authority, he becomes purified. All Krishna-conscious activities should be undertaken for personal purification, apana shodhite, not for material gain. Text 8. After Nityananda Prabhu, the greatest branch is Virabhadra Gosai, who also has innumerable branches and sub-branches. It is not possible to describe them all. Purport. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur writes in his Anubhashya, Virabhadra Gosai was the direct son of Srila Nityananda Prabhu and a disciple of Janavi Devi. His real mother was Vasudha. In his Gauragano Deepika 67, he is mentioned as an incarnation of Chirodakashayi Vishnu. Therefore, Virabhadra Gosai is non-different from Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In a village of the name Jamatapur, in the district of Hooghly, Virabhadra Gosai had a disciple named Yadunatacharya, who had two daughters, a real daughter named Srimati and a foster daughter named Narayani. Virabhadra Gosai married both these daughters, and they are mentioned in the Bhakti Ratnakar, 13th wave. Virabhadra Gosai had 3 disciples who were celebrated as his sons, Gopijana Ballabha, Ramakrishna, and Ramachandra. The youngest, Ramachandra, belonged to the Shandilya dynasty and had the surname Bhattavyala. He established his family at Kadadaha, and its members are known as the Goswamis of Kadadaha. The eldest disciple, Gopijana Ballabha, was a resident of a village known as Lata, near the Manakara railway station in the district of Burdwan. The second, Ramakrishna, lived near Maladaha, in a village named Gayeshapur. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur notes that since these 3 disciples belonged to different gotras or dynasties and also had different surnames and lived in different places, it is not possible to accept them as real sons of Virabhadra Gosai. Ramachandra had 4 sons, of whom the eldest was Radha Madhava, whose 3rd son was named Yadavendra. Yadavendra's son was Nandakishore. His son was Nidhi Krishna. His son was Chaitanya Chanda. His son was Krishna Mohan. His son was Jagan Mohan. His son was Brajanath, and his son was Shamalala Goswami. This is the genealogical table given by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur for the descendants of Virabhadra Gosai. Text 9. Although Virabhadra Gosai was the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he presented himself as a great devotee. And although the Supreme Godhead is transcendental to all Vedic injunctions, he strictly followed the Vedic rituals. Text 10. He is the main pillar in the hall of devotional service erected by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He knew within himself that he acted as the Supreme Lord, Vishnu, but externally he was prideless. Text 11. It is by the glorious mercy of Sri Virabhadra Gosai that people all over the world now have the chance to chant the names of Chaitanya and Nityananda. 12. I therefore take shelter of the lotus feet of Virabhadra Gosai, so that by his mercy my great desire to write Sri Caitanya-caritämrta will be properly guided. Text 13. 2 devotees of Lord Chaitanya, named Sri Ramdas and Gadadhar Das, always lived with Sri Virabhadra Gosai. Purport. Sri Ramdas, later known as Abhiram Thakur, was one of the 12 Gopalas, or cowherd boyfriends of Sri Nityananda Prabhu. The Gaura Ganodesh Deepika 126 states that Sri Ramadas was formerly Sri Dhamma. In the Bhakti Ratnakara, 4th wave, there is a description of Srila Abhiram Thakur. By the order of Sri Nityananda Prabhu, Abhiram Thakur became a great acharya and preacher of the Chaitanya cult of devotional service. He was a very influential personality, and non-devotees were very much afraid of him. Empowered by Sri Nityananda Prabhu, he was always in ecstasy and was extremely kind to all fallen souls. It is said that if he offered obeisances to any stone other than a shalagram shila, it would immediately fracture. Now that's power, devotional service. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur writes in his Anubhashya, 10 miles southwest of the Champadanga railway station on the narrow gauge railway line from Howrah in Calcutta to Amta, a village in the Hooghly district, is a small town named Kanakula Krishnanagar, where the temple in which Abhiram Thakur worshipped is situated. During the rainy season, when this area is inundated with water, people must go there by another line, which is now called the Southeastern Railway. On this line, there is a station named Kolagat, from which one has to go by steamer to Ranichaka. 7.5 miles north of Ranichaka is Kanakula. The temple where Abhiram Thakur worshipped is situated in Krishnanagar, which is near the Kula bank of the Kana, Dwarakeshwara River. Therefore, this place is celebrated as Kanakula Krishnanagar. Outside of the temple is a bakula tree. This place is known as Siddhabakul Kunj. It is said that when Abhiram Thakur came there, he sat down underneath this tree. In Kanakula Krishnanagar, there is a big fair held every year in the month of Chaitra, March-April, on the Krishna Saptami, the 7th day of the dark moon. Many hundreds and thousands of people gather for this festival. The temple where Abhiram Thakur worshipped has a very old history. The deity in the temple is known as Gopinath. There are many Saivite families living near the temple. It is said that Abhiram Thakur had a whip, and that whoever he touched with it, would immediately become an elevated devotee of Krishna. Among his many disciples, Sriman Srinivasacharya was the most famous and the most dear, but it is doubtful that he was his initiated disciple. And we'll stop our daily reading there. It's almost 7:55. Please now let us relish, kind of like a cow that eats and then chews its cud. We can listen to the nectarian sound and then reflect on it, kind of like a cow chewing its cud. And it gets more power, more potency every time we reflect. This is the nectar of this program. Reading and then reflecting. Okay, Hare Krishna. Your turn.
There's a comment from Brajvalabha.
Brajvalabha.
He says, this is the only solution to pushing back on the age of Kali. The constant reading on the spiritual words, aka Kirtanam.
You got it right, Brajan. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for that realization. That was brilliant and enlivening. This is the way to push back the influence of the Kali Yuga. I mean, I guess the coronavirus in one way is pushing it back because it's just causing all the sinners and nonsenses to go in, stay indoors and not come and spread their virus to everyone else. But this is the real way. This is a better way because we're not bored, we're happy. The more we hear and chant, the happier we will get. And then the illusion that we can permanently stay here and build castles and have dynasties and do all these things will melt away. And then we will concentrate on the spreading of the dynasty of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda's transcendental tree of love of God. And this is the way to do it. To hear about them and hear about all their followers and all the wonderful qualities they had and all the wonderful things that they do. And it's a fact that you go right now to Mayapur. It's not our business to criticize anyone, honestly. But if you just go there and you see the difference between the Caitanya-caritämrta Mandir, which Prabhupada established in Mayapur, the birthplace of Lord Chaitanya, and all the other mats. There's so many along Bhaktisiddhanta Road and across the river, and most of them are just more or less dead. But the ISKCON community is growing more and more and more and more. Soon there will be a city, and the temple is huge. It can be seen for miles and miles and miles around. And when the nature of envy is that when an envious eyes sees something happening glorious, they find fault in it. They want to bring it down. Therefore, of all the disciples of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, it's just the truth. It was in one of the purports. Prabhupada wrote it. It's just the truth to say that the ISKCON movement, because it's following in the footsteps of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda and all their followers, it's expanding. Even despite all the problems and all of the pushback and all of the impediments that come from our previous activities in this material world and our fallen condition, this is the unlimited mercy of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, especially Lord Nityananda. He was even more merciful than Lord Chaitanya. So that's what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be spreading the movement according to our capacity. Not that we should try to imitate Lord Nityananda or Lord Chaitanya and think ourselves capable of just by people seeing us, they will become pure lovers of God. No. Whatever our capacity is, we should use that capacity to spread Krishna consciousness somehow or other. And Srila Prabhupada emphasized, more than any other activity, the distribution of his transcendental literature. And anyone who sits every day like this and hears them will understand just how powerful and sweet they are. So Brajbalaba, thank you very much for inspiring me to say those words. By the seed you placed, and I'm trying to water it, and it's wonderful. Hare Krishna.
Next is something from Gauranga Gopal.
Hey Gauranga Gopal, Haribo.
He says, Hare Krishna Maharaj, we hear that the devotees of Krishna are ready to take great risks to serve him. How can we be sure that the risks we may take won't go beyond the instruction given to us?
Well, one thing is that it shouldn't be dangerous. I just heard Srila Prabhupada say today, it was Gopi Paranananda Prabhu, because every day, when I get up and do my whole body maintenance and dress and all these things, I always listen to Srila Prabhupada. And I listen in chronological order to his morning walks, his morning Bhagavatam, his room conversations, his special programs, everything. And the next day, morning walk, Bhagavatam class, etc., etc. And I do that in chronological order. Right now, I've done this about maybe 3 times through, and in all these years, and I'm now up to 1976, and he's in Washington, D.C. They had just gotten that Potomac property, and Prabhupada was preaching to some of the elevated Indian bodied congregational members and firing them up. And lost my train of thought. I was trying to make a point. Um, and yes, and then and then in the afternoon, when I take my afternoon bath and body maintenance, then I listen to Gopi Puranadana Prabhu. And today I heard, now you're going to get me back on track. I had a train of thought and I got absorbed in what I was saying and I forgot the point. What was it? Yes. Gopi Puranadana Prabhu was saying about the spreading of the Krishna consciousness movement and how we all need to, oh yes, it was about over-endeavor. Yes, now I got my train of thought, thank you. He said devotees are not foolhardy. They take risks, but they're not foolhardy. And you use the example of, in Armenia, for instance, the devotees preach very vigorously in the public, and it's basically a Muslim country, and the government just threw them out, just stopped them completely. There is no Christian consciousness movement in Armenia. Maybe there is now, but there wasn't for a long time. And also in Argentina, same thing. They preached, but they preached in a foolhardy way, you know. So now we see this pandemic, you know. This pandemic is not an ordinary pandemic. I mean, there have been plagues and things like that that wiped out large percentages of the population. And now they have medical science that can stop the spread, and they know how to do that. But now, as fallen as people have become, they can't take those restrictions, they can't take those disciplines that you have to do to stop the spread of a pandemic. So we shouldn't be foolhardy and just keep our activities going on the same when it puts people in risk. You know, this pandemic spreads through the droplets that come out of the mouth. Every time you breathe out, you breathe little droplets of things that were in your body. And especially when you sing out loud or yell and things like that, it spreads it for long distances, 12 feet, 10, 12 feet, it goes out, especially if you sneeze or cough. So it's very serious. How many people, like 5 million people now, have been infected? And 500,000 have died. And out of those, 120 or 30, over 120, close to 130. And they expected to get up to 160 just by the end of this month. So intelligently, the ISKCON temples are following the orders of the local authorities to socially distance, stay isolated at home. Now they're starting to open up, but in America particularly, because they're so addicted to their freedom, they're just going crazy, and they're going out and having beach parties and raves and whatever else they do nowadays, you know, to try to enjoy. And they're spreading it like mad. Now they're having 50,000 new cases a day. A record, even when it was before, it was less than 50,000 a day. So the curve is not bending down, it's bending up. In Europe, because they've been more disciplined, it's going down. And New Zealand, it's finished. Because they were strict and disciplined. Okay, it's true that America is a very big place and it's very diverse. It's like a whole bunch of countries all in one. It's like every state's like a country practically. But we shouldn't be foolhardy. Prabhupada said, an intelligent person does not look for trouble. But we take risk means we try to preach boldly, we try to innovate, and now what's happening is, if you go on to the ISV, ISKCON of Silicon Valley websites, and they have many of them. They doubled their book distribution from last year at the same time, right in the middle of the pandemic. And how did they do that? They did it by staying at home and picking up the telephone and talking to everybody they knew and people that they'd come in contact with that they had met the whole year. And they passed out like almost 300 sets of Bhagavatams, 177 sets of Caitanya-caritämrta, all within a month. They doubled their results. They collected like $170,000 in 1 month, just through book distribution. This is taking risk, but they innovated in such a way that it was not foolhardily. They didn't, endanger themselves or anyone else in doing it. So that's the secret. Risk means you innovate, you preach boldly, you think of different ways to do it, you tax your brain how to spread Krishna consciousness. Recently, now that I'm a little older, I'm coming up to 74 in the end of this month, and I have some physical disabilities that are natural when you get over 70, especially when you get to 80. And I've kind of made up my mind that for the rest of my life I'm going to limit myself to doing the audiobooks, which are going to be very, very popular and very powerful tools to spread Srila Prabhupada's teachings, which he wanted. This is what he wanted. So to publish the books in a way that they haven't been published before, the main books. Now we've already more or less recorded the Caitanya-caritämrta, although there are things that we have to dub in, as they say. There are dub-ins that need to be done. And Rasika Shiromani in Houston is working his way through the chapters to edit the sound, because when you record, there's things that need to be edited out, noise, mouth noise, different things. And also, if you don't say it just right, like you hear me sometimes make a mistake, then say it again, make a mistake, say it again. So like that has to be a part of the process. Then when you edit it all out, then it becomes very flowing without mistake. That's the audiobook. So that is my legacy service for Srila Prabhupada, and everyone will have to more or less tolerate, as I will also, keeping myself a little bit aloof and secluded, and my mind fresh, so that I can do this. Taking risk for Krishna. Hare Krishna.
There's a second part to his question also.
Second part.
He says, and also...
Is it still Gauranga Gopal?
Yes.
Okay.
And also, how do we find the strength to go the extra mile in our endeavor to achieve what is being instructed?
Follow the 4 regulated principles strictly. Our spiritual strength comes from our regulation. Tasmat tvam inriyanyado niyamya bharatarshaba papmanam prajihiyenam jnana vijnana nashanam. Therefore, in the very beginning, tasmat tvam inriyanyado, in the very beginning, niyamya bharatarshaba, regulate the senses, and from the regulation of the senses will become regulation of the mind, control of the mind. And that brings you to the level of human being. If you don't follow these regulated principles, then you are more or less still an animal, even if you have 2 legs. Papmanam prajihiyenam, the actual cause of papa, sin, is lust. Papanambhajayam jnana vijnana nashanam. So we conquer the enemy of lust, which is what? Jnana vijnana nashanam, the destroyer of our knowledge and our self-realization. That is only one verse in the Bhagavad Gita, and there's 700 of them that will teach you how to be powerful and strong spiritually. Surrender to the order of Krishna and the order of Krishna's representatives and serve selflessly, without personal motivation, without desire for profit, adoration, or distinction, and just serve to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to please the representatives of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the sincere followers of the representatives of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and human society in general, who are potential servants of the servants of the servants of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that's what we're listening to right now in the 10th and 11th chapters of the Ädi-lilä of Caitanya-caritämrta. Associate with those devotees and you will become empowered. Associate with those who are not afraid, and with those who speak straight, with those who read Prabhupada's books straight, and teach them. You may speak in your own words. That's what realization means. You may not parrot the words, although if you can't speak them in your own words, then parrot them. It's fine. It's just as powerful. But realization means to not try to supersede the spiritual master or the previous acharyas, but to have full faith in their words and not to change them, not to subtract or add, but say them in your own words in such a way that the people that you're speaking to will become enlivened and attracted and inspired. That is called personal realization. Rise early in the morning, take bath, go to Mangalarti, have your morning program, chant your prayers, and chant your japa, 16 rounds minimum every day. Serve the deities. Do the services that you do during the day, whether it be preaching or managing or editing or washing or cooking or cleaning, deity worship. Every single service is meaningful. We're hearing now about the personal associates of Lord Chaitanya, and some of them just have the specialty of holding a torch during the Nagar Sankirtan, or bringing the water that he used for the day, because in those days they didn't have pipes and running water and everything. Or served him, cooked for him, cleaned, had kirtan with him in the temple, Jagannath Puri. This is Krishna conscious life, and all of it together gives us strength and enthusiasm and power to be fearless and to take risks. You cannot spread the Krishna consciousness movement, especially in the West, without taking risks. And therefore there are impediments. And in the first chapter, at the beginning of the Ädi-lilä, Srila Prabhupada describes this very nicely, that when you actually spread the Krishna consciousness movement all over the world, then there will be impediments, there will be obstacles, there will be people who are like dogs and pigs, who will try to impede the movement in many ways. But Prabhupada said, the caravan moves and the dogs will bark, but the caravan will move on. It just goes on. It doesn't pay attention to the dogs that are barking. So someone may criticize us for criticizing. That's the truth. When you tell the truth in a nice way, humorous way, exaggerated way, it will inspire others and reveal the truth, rather than keeping everybody in a cloak of comfort, entrenched in their own positions and their own attachments and all these things. The mercy of Lord Chaitanya flows naturally down to the most fallen. Therefore, even if you're most fallen, it's no excuse. You're more eligible, most eligible to receive the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. So whoever you are, wherever you live, whatever position you're in, whatever your talents are or are not, there is some place for you in the family tree of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Become the servant of 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 Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, and you will get unlimited strength and power. But the first thing is the basics. Become fixed in following the 4 regulated principles strictly, and chanting 16 rounds of Hare Krishna mantra every day without fail, while you're trying to avoid offenses. And as you do that, and as you give up the offenses, then the spiritual strength grows like a tree in your heart. And when the fruits and flowers come, then you will taste the fruits of love of God. And that comes in the beginning of that is attachment for hearing the instructions and the glories of the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and their eternal associates. Hare Krishna. Is that okay?
He hasn't written back yet, but we can move on to the next comment.
Yes.
Next is from Sudevi Dasi.
Jai Sudevi, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. You read that if someone worships Lord Chaitanya and not Lord Nityananda, or worships Lord Nityananda separate from Sri Radha Krishna, that this person is an atheist. I have heard there was 2 kinds of people.
Not exactly separate, but if you worship one, but don't worship the other, or worship the other and don't worship, you can sometimes worship them separately in terms of where they are on the altar. You don't mix them together when you worship them on the altar. But you can't worship one and neglect the other. You have to worship them equally. Not exactly separate, but equally. Don't neglect anybody. She was saying something else then?
Well, that was it.
Okay.
Next is from Rati Manjari.
Hey Rati, Hare Krishna.
She says, Dear Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. As I began listening to you reading this evening, I felt myself beginning to feel safe in the midst of all the turmoil of my day in my life.
Thank you, Rati. That made my day.
Thank you for being my spiritual anchor day after day after day. You are giving real treasure, not to one, but to all.
Anyway, thank you very much. That's very encouraging to hear.
And she has a question also.
Yes, please.
I wanted to ask one thing. Probably you have already covered it with your beautiful answer to Gauranga Gopal Das, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Dear Guru Maharaj, tonight you have once again read to us about the glorious associates of Lord Chaitanya, who are tasting love of God and feeling divine madness. I am in a completely neophyte condition, and their level of Krishna consciousness is totally out of my reach. There are aspects of Krishna consciousness I am really attracted to, like kirtan and hearing the philosophy, but sometimes I find it hard to assimilate or digest that the goal of the path I'm trying to follow is to become mad with love of God. As usual, in my case, I am probably looking at it through mundane eyes, worrying uselessly and holding myself back. Can you please advise how to deal with this?
Keep on going out and chanting Hare Krishna in public like you do, and making your little baskets of whatever, fruits or, sweets or whatever, and passing them out to people and giving the books whenever you can, and all your desires will be fulfilled. Everything will spring from that. That is becoming mad after Krishna. Only a mad person will go out in the rain, with a little harmonium in the middle of Amsterdam, one of the most sinful places in the world, and just chant your lungs out to people. Only a madman would do that, or a mad woman in your case. So you already are a mad woman, Rati. But the catch is, when one goes mad in love with Krishna, the more he gets like that, the more he thinks he's poor and humble and useless. That's one of the mystical perfections of devotional life. The more you advance, the less advanced you think you are. But at the same time, the more you're addicted to doing these activities that you just said are the only activities you like, and they happen to be the essence of Krishna consciousness. So what can I say? I always tell you I live vicariously with you because I can't walk anymore and I can't go out like that and do that. And it was my life and soul for, I don't know, so many years, 45 years. But now I'm doing this through this way of preaching and spreading the sound, so it's the same. That's what I'm saying. You can't, we shouldn't compare ourselves to others and say, why can't I do this? Why can't I do that? Who can do what you're doing, Rati? Who can go out in the middle of Amsterdam in the middle of a rainstorm and just chant Hare Krishna and have a good time doing it? What are you talking about?
He says, even with the limitations on singing in these corona times,
that we tolerate. We tolerate and we wait until the corona passes, and we hear and chant and get the phone out and talk to people and do whatever the needful is. At least you get to stay at home and do your work there. I rest my case. You're there every day hearing. You're one of the most loyal hearers since I started to do this right from the very beginning. You inspired me to do it, practically one of them. One of the devotees who inspired me to do this. I didn't even think I could do this. I think I was useless. What can I do? And you and some others close to me, and Radharan and others, convinced me to do it. And once I started, it was like getting on a bicycle and, riding it again. It was like natural. And now look, it's something wonderful. And I've heard, I haven't personally, I don't get around so much anymore, so I don't see personally with my own eyes, but I've heard that Many people are beginning to get into reading Prabhupada's books like this out loud, together. And that's the goal of my life. It's to be the goal of everyone's life. Like Vilas Manjari, she's not as steady in the live readings, but she's every day she's reading and hearing, and now she's starting her own groups. And you are also reading. You have your reading groups. Hare Krishna.
Gauranga Gopal.
Yes.
Says, thank you so much, Maharaj. Your answer was like Krishna wording what he gradually tried to reveal to me recently. I already feel strength coming from your words. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Gauranga Gopal. You made my day also. I'm living through all of you, watching other people get attracted to Krishna consciousness, or at least get more of a taste for hearing about Krishna. That's my life and soul. I get so much strength from that. I cannot express it, actually.
Rati says, thank you, you're always so encouraging. And you are a natural relisher, and you take all of us with you.
I'm just trying to repeat what Prabhupada said, that's all. That's all I do. It's no magic, it's just, repeating what I heard from my spiritual master. Let Prabhupada speak for himself, that's my motto.
There's a comment from Dayal Nitai.
Jai Dayal Nitai.
He says, dear and respected Srila Guru Maharaj, please accept my obeisance. Thank you for guiding us in the reading of Caitanya-caritämrta. One thing I would especially like to take home from tonight's reading is the teaching of Srila Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, in that he never took interest to hear about worldly matters, and even if there would be points to be criticized, he would not care for any Vaishnava's fault, as the Vaishnavas are all serving Lord Chaitanya. These are worshipable teachings of which I feel I still have everything to learn.
Yes.
Your servant, Dayal Nitai.
Thank you very much, Dayal Nitai. That's very wonderful. There's one place where it's described that Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, when he heard anyone criticizing anyone, he would just go like this and walk away. He wouldn't even hear it. It's the nature of the Kali Yuga that everyone's addicted to finding fault and talking about it, It's very hard to escape that. But one thing is that it isn't an offense to call a spade, as Prabhupada would say. If a person's a thief and you call him a thief in order to protect other people from that, then that's not an offense. Or if you see someone about to walk out into the middle, a blind person or a child about ready to walk out into a busy street and get run over chasing a ball or something, and you don't do something, you don't run, and even if you knock them down, you may have to knock them down and even injure them to keep them from jumping up a cliff or a building or doing something crazy. That's also not the same thing. We live in this gross culture that we're living in, and with all the dangers, we have to be, caring. It's also caring to explain to people what the truth is, even if they don't like to hear it. There's one nice purport, Bhagavad Gita, chapter 3, verse 31, I think. You can get that. I'll read this out because this is very relevant to two of the questions tonight. Bhagavad Gita. chapter 3, verse 31. No, I'm sorry, I got it wrong. It's 29. Sorry. Verse 29 of the 3rd chapter. Prakriter gunasamuda sajanti gunakarmasu tana kritsna vido mandan kritsna vin navichalayat. Bewildered. We read this verse just this morning. 3rd chapter. Yes. Abhay and I read this chapter just this morning out loud. Bewildered by the modes of material nature, the ignorant fully engage themselves in material activities and become attached. But the wise should not unsettle them, although these duties are inferior due to the performer's lack of knowledge. Purport. Persons who are unknowledgeable falsely identify with gross material consciousness and are full of material designations. This body is a gift of the material nature, and one who is too much attached to the bodily consciousness is called manda, or a lazy person without understanding of spirit soul. Ignorant men think of the body as the self. They accept bodily connections with others as kinsmanship, and the land in which the body is obtained as their object of worship. And they consider the formalities of religious rituals to be ends in themselves. Social work, nationalism, and altruism are some of the activities for such materially designated persons. Under the spell of such designations, they are always busy in the material field. For them, spiritual realization is a myth, and so they are not interested. Those who are enlightened in spiritual life, however, should not try to agitate such materially engrossed persons. Better to prosecute one's own spiritual activities silently. Such bewildered persons may be engaged in such primary, most moral principles of life as non-violence and similar materially benevolent work. Men who are ignorant cannot appreciate activities in Krishna consciousness. Therefore the Lord advises us not to disturb them and simply waste valuable time. But, the punchline comes at the end, but the devotees of the Lord are more kind than the Lord, because they understand the purpose of the Lord. Consequently, they undertake all kinds of risks, even to the point of approaching ignorant men who try to engage them in the acts of Krishna consciousness, which are absolutely necessary for the human being. So Gopal Bhatta's Goswami's service was given to him by Lord Chaitanya. He said, you go to Vrindavan and you read Srimad Bhagavatam 24 hours a day. That was his service. And that was the place that he was doing his service, in Vrindavan. But we're out in the wilds of the Kali Yuga, in the concrete jungles of major cities in the West, preaching Krishna consciousness. And therefore, just doing that is taking a risk. And we're doing that, why? Because it's the order of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The order of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the power to fulfill the order is in the order itself. That is the nature of spiritual teachings, especially from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Nityananda. So yes, it was glorious, and it is glorious to not find fault with anybody for anything and just read Bhagavatam 24 hours a day. But try to do it. It's not for just anybody. Raghunath Bhatta Goswami was a very special soul, son of Tapan Mishra, great devotee of Lord Chaitanya. So he was a great soul from the very beginning. He came to this material world to set that example, and Lord Chaitanya gave him that designated duty accordingly, perfectly. And there's another statement in one of the purports that we read fairly recently about the 9 processes of devotional service, and how the service that a person will like to do best will depend on his nature and on his taste. So whatever is your taste to do for Krishna, you should do that. When Gopakumar was traveling in the spiritual abode of liberation, he was instructed by the Vaikuntha Dutas like this. They said, whatever is the activity that makes one the happiest when we're doing devotional service, that's what we should do. Not for ourselves, but for the pleasure of Krishna. But why is that an important instruction? Because when you do something for someone enthusiastically, it's more pleasing to them than if you do it begrudgingly or just because they have to do it out of duty. So these are the refinements of the science of devotional service. And we should hear them and relish them and try to apply them into our own character. And then we go forward rapidly in devotional service. Hare Krishna. So I feel like I've given about 3 Bhagavatam classes tonight, and it's already almost 20 minutes to 9. So with the permission of the assembled sages gathered together in cyberspace, I will stop today for the daily reading. We made it through another day and got to read Caitanya-caritämrta with the devotees one more day, and our life is successful. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Shri Caitanya-caritämrta ki jai, Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Gaura Premanandi Hari Hari Bo. See you tomorrow night, same place, same station, same time. Hare Krishna.